Hello again, Gary Stearman coming to you from the studios of Prophecy Watchers. Time for an update, and our guest today is L.A. Marzulli. L.A., good to have you back.
Great to be here as always, Gary. Thank you.
When L.A.'s in town, things are happening. And, and let's begin by talking about what I consider to be an enormously successful DVD, The Watchmen Chronicles, and this one rotates around the title, In Their Own Words. In Their Own Words, intriguing title.
Well, you know, the reason why we called it this is because I was going around to different churches and speaking. This is what I do. I go to a lot of conferences and presenting my information. I would ask the people in the audience, how many of you have seen a UFO, lights in the sky, orbs, had an encounter, sleep paralysis, an entity in the room, or been taken? And this is a very unscientific study, but what amazed me is between 5% as a low, but in most cases between 20 and 30%, maybe even as high as 35% as a high, people in the audience would raise their hands. They've experienced something. And I realized that, my gosh, these are all born-again, spirit-filled Christians who have had encounters, many of them before they came to the Lord, but others after they came to the Lord, seeing lights in the sky, not being taken, not being abducted, but seeing UFOs. And I realized that this is a dirty little secret within the church community. They don't want to talk about that. And yet, upwards of 30% of the people sitting in pews all across the nation have had encounters. It's time to start talking about it.
And the word is, and we hear this all the time from in different quarters, that there will soon be some sort of disclosure. That's the word they use. Someone is going to open his mouth sooner or later and tell the big secret that all the governments of the world have been dealing with this problem for decades, and they've kept a lid on it because they think that if it ever got loose in society, society would become uncontrollable. They've got their reasons for keeping a lid on it, but your thoughts about disclosure?
Well, I think disclosure is imminent. Whether or not it's again, someone in the United States government, it could be the current president, Donald Trump. President Trump could just say, we've known about them. We're dealing with them, nothing to be alarmed about. It could be some sort of an incident, let's say, where a craft begins to hover and stays there for, let's say, an hour. So plenty of film crews can get there and they all know it's there and then it whisks away. I honestly believe that, and you know this, I have wrestled with a portion of Scripture that talks about the great falling away, apostasia from 2 Thessalonians. Right. And does that mean falling away from the faith, or does it mean departure, the rapture? And I've sort of reconciled that as of late, believing that as we go up, they show up. I think it could be dual meaning. We go up in the rapture, pre-tribulation rapture, before any of the nonsense happens. They show up. And Gary, think about this. This cat and mouse game with the UFO phenomena has gone on since Roswell. And now Fox News did a clip about 2 weeks ago showing that UFO sightings right now, 2017, are literally at an all-time high. Record-breaking. But something is restraining them. And we both know what that is, or who that is.
We know who the restrainer is, which brings me to another question, and that is the general state of the world today. You mentioned our president, Donald Trump, and he might be just the man to, if you will, trumpet the news about the UFO situation. I mean, who better? Because he basically has a reputation for just telling all. And he might well be the bearer of that news, but he's talking about other things as we speak. As we speak right now, the Middle East is heating up again. We are living in the shadow of those Tomahawk missiles that were sent to Syria. And immediately our thoughts turned back to Bible prophecy, because there's a prophecy against Damascus in Isaiah 17. And suddenly we're all back in that mode. So comment on that, if you will.
I'd love to. First of all, the suburbs around Damascus have literally become a ruinous heap, literally. They're just shells of building. This has caused the great influx, or I should say outpouring, of refugees from Syria to escape this. Damascus proper, as we know it, is still intact. It is not destroyed. What's interesting about this, several years ago, the Israelis stated, during the Obama administration, if you use, talking to the Syrians, if you use chemical weapons against Israel, we will annihilate you. That's their red line in the sand. The question is, and I've talked about this on my YouTube channel this morning, but Trump got the intel. We were all fed. We've seen the pictures, and it's all in a loop. You know, people being shuttled around and with masks on, and they're being helped and washed off, and we've seen all these pictures. The question is, and I say this with all due sincerity, we don't know what happened. We have to rely on these photographs, and people telling us what we're looking at. Same thing with our president. He's getting intel from the Pentagon, from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. How do we know? And this is, and I say this with, I love our government. Please understand where I'm coming from. Could it be that he was set up? Could it be a false flag? Just like Benghazi, when we were told that, oh, the reaction of all these Muslims is a spontaneous reaction to this B-grade film that was released, which was anti-Muslim. Of course,
Right.
Later on, we found out that whole story was a canard. It was a ruse. It was a classic wag the dog.
Yes.
What are we looking at? And then, of course, former Secretary Rice gets up and tells us that, oh, all the chemical weapons are gone from Syria, nothing to fear, and yet we've got this. What is the truth? And this is the problem, and you know this. It's, you know, we're sitting here, just like Donald Trump, President Trump, and we have no way to vet this,
Right.
nor does he. He has to rely on his intel.
We're living in a day when people are playing fast and loose with the truth. And you and I were having a conversation before we sat down here today, and the idea of truth, or the question, what is truth, is in the Bible. Pontius Pilate, when he had Jesus before him on trial, eventually came to the point where he said, what is truth? Very famous line, one of the most famous lines in all history. And that was the Roman Empire of his day. You couldn't tell what was true and what was not. Everything was a cover story. And politics covering other layers of politics, the Herodians and the Roman factions, you know. And, you know, as I think about it, we've come around to that idea again today.
I say we've come around to that idea on steroids because we're in the information age, where as in Rome, everything moved very slowly. Information moves slowly. Today, it's like the information cycle used to be 24 hours, then 12. It's probably more like 4 or 5. Everything just moves so quickly because everything is hooked up with the internet and the satellites overhead. Information is just relayed all around the world. The problem is, you know, and just think about this, folks. CNN will come up with a story, and because of their ideology and because of their worldview, they spin the story a certain way. You can watch reporting from the Fox News channel, who has a certain ideology, a certain worldview, the same story, but it's spun another way. What is the truth?
And
what's the real story?
You left out the British. You know, you can look at their nervous and news services like, for example, the Daily Mail, the Times of London, and you get a third, if you will, axis of truth. And so we're living in a time that I think was prophesied. We're living in a time when everything is a masquerade, if you will. And that I believe that the Old Testament prophets talked about that kind of a day, when evil men and seducers would wax worse and worse, as Paul put it. So we're here.
Yeah, I certainly concur. I truly believe that we're in a window of time that is unprecedented, where evil is called good and good is evil, and the truth is so obfuscated and covered up with such a just lies that are, I mean, we've talked about this before, but if we could go back 150 years, let's say, just you and me, time travelers, let's say, we're traveling back in time 150 years, and we appear on the Senate floor, and we go, guys, you're not going to believe this, but 150 years from now, gay marriage will be the law of the land. Oh, that's impossible. Oh, outrage. Who are these imposters, right? That's what they would do. No one would believe us. No one would believe us. If at the same thing, and we said, oh, and by the way, there'll be this not legislation, but a decision from your Supreme Court, which will lead to 1 billion aborted babies on the planet. The same thing. They would stand up, fists would be pounding desks, they would be throwing papers in the air, they would be storming us to drag us outside and tar and feather us, because how can that possibly be? You're lying, our nation would never stoop to this. Here we are, 2017. 1 billion aborted babies, and gay marriage is the law of the land, and the church sleeps for the most part.
For the most part. And our job is to wake up the sleeping church. I know that is your mission.
And that's what yours is too.
Again, LA's latest motion picture, and I'm going to call it that.
Thank you, sir.
It's a captivating presentation. The Watchman Chronicles dealing with the question of what are we looking at when people report events that appear supernatural. Are they? Or are we courting visitors from other galaxies? That's the big argument today. Science says, well, we're discovering planets revolving around other suns, and not too far away, 4, 5, 6 light years away. They could travel here very easily, and that's what we're probably seeing in the sky, if we're seeing anything at all. So the propagandists are out there.
Oh yeah, what is the truth?
What is truth? We're going to, what the truth is, we're running out of time, L.A., but it's good to have you here, and I'd like to give you just a final word to kind of encourage Christians to get out there and sort of keep watching.
Keep watching, folks, because I think we're in a window of time where Bible prophecy is more relevant now than ever before. And I think we've also reached a moment in history where it's so complex and the truth has been so obfuscated that there's only one way to fix this, and that's the return of the King, which means we go up. And folks, when we go up, that's when the restrainer leaves this planet. And when the Holy Spirit is gone, when the Spirit of the living God is gone, that's when literally all hell breaks loose. And I think we're very close.
So we are watching. Thanks, L.A.
Thank you, Gary.
And you keep watching too. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.